I see a lot of spiritual people give their time for free. What kind of mindset shifts can we make to feel comfortable charging more and even opening up to new ways of making money?
Bhagavad Gita never says don't make money. Most of the characters, the gods, the warriors, all of them are kings or queens. If you're spiritual, you should be asking for money.
A lot of people fear if I have more money, it's going to be more problems in my life.
That's a narrative that is unconsciously created by rich people. Managing money is actually not hard. More money means more money. The challenge becomes,
back in the day, spiritual people were gifted everything. I was living in this village in Thailand, and every single day we would cook food and feed the monks. I don't see anyone at my door with banana bread. My landlord requires money. I can't be like, you know what, blessings. For us to be spiritual people and to be able to share in this day and age, we need money.
Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. Trust flow, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Welcome back to the High Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose, and on this podcast, I love to take spirituality and make it fun, modern, grounded, and relatable. And something that I love to talk about, I like to go into, the sneaky topics no one likes to address. I like to go into the underworld. That's what Tantra is all about. So as someone with 7 planets in Capricorn, you heard that right. My astrologer said the only other person on planet Earth he has met with more Capricorn in their chart than me was a Rockefeller. So that's why I wore some Dubai bling today. Well, as a Capricorn, Sun, Moon, North Node, I know you're thinking, what else? Mars, everything, Saturn. I love money. I love money. I used to not have money, and I actually really like having money. It's fun. I get to actually be way more spiritual with it because I have like a pink car and a pink studio and lots of pink outfits, a whole pink closet, and I get to like travel the world and do what I want. And it's really fun. And it wouldn't have been possible had I not mastered my money mindset. So money mindset, is it just listening to Cardi B? I think it is a part of it, at least for me, some sweetie. And I remember reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill back in the day. And he asked me to look at my dad's relationship with money, my mom's relationship with money. And I realized like my dad was very, very cheap. Like, oh my God, if we got our $5 allowance, I had to write down on a spreadsheet how I spent every single penny. Like, I remember my brother and I, and my dad had money too, but he would act like he was dying. And so my brother and I liked vanilla ice cream. My brother liked chocolate. We would go to the ice cream store and my dad would be like, okay, Vid, you pick one flavor. I'm like, okay, vanilla and sprinkles, rainbow. And my brother's like, chocolate. And he's like, Vid, it costs 60 cents more if you get 2 smalls. So you have to choose one medium because it's the same 2 scoops, but 60 cents less, okay? And so me and my brother like arguing back and forth. He gets his coffee, ice cream. He's like, "Well, you didn't decide. I guess no ice cream for you." And it was like, damn, son, like, you gotta do me like that shit. And so I was like, I need to learn how to make my own money. Like, I need to figure this out because I can't live on this allowance. I need to have rainbow sprinkles in my life. And so now I do. And now I'm so passionate about sharing with other people how to have rainbow sprinkles in their lives in their own unique ways. And what that looks like for you is, I don't know, buying organic food. Okay, what about when you're at the airport and your bag is over 50 pounds? And it's like, I know we're all putting our foot on that thing. Like, no, it's like totally fine. And it's like $25 extra. And you're like in the line, holding up the line. Everyone's hitting you. They're like sending you evil eye. And you're like trying because you don't have the extra $25. Trust me, I've been there in all those places. It's not fun. And you can't channel your highest self when you're in that like survival state. So I decided to bring on my fellow co-founder of Highest Self Institute, someone who's taught me so much about money and abundance and how to continue to have that mindset where we open ourselves to receive more and more and more and more. And I went from broke, for those of you who don't know my story, after my parents disowned me, I had literally zero money. I had one health coaching client. She paid me $206 a month, and that was enough for me to live in a hut in Arambol, India. That was $2 a night. And I just lived there and I was like, okay, I guess like if I could make it to $500 a month, I'll be like chilling here. And I was like, I guess this is what how you have to live as a spiritual person. Like this is just how it's been done. But then I realized that I didn't want to limit my life to this one tiny little village. And I wanted to continue to grow and expand. But I thought the only other way was get a corporate job doing something that you hate and like sell your soul, you know? And what I've learned is that through living your dharma, through living your soul's purpose, sharing your gifts, sharing your wisdom with the world, being your fullest expression, you actually channel the highest level of abundance possible. Like I'm talking, you're one of one. So if we know like supply and demand is probably the only economics I know, supply, demand, if there's only one of you, you're going to make more money, right? One of one. And that's what living your purpose is all about. So in today's episode, we're going to talk about how he moved from living in a small town in India, which I'm so excited. I'm actually going to go visit that town, but went on to become a CEO, an investor, you know, working with companies that have made hundreds of millions of dollars simply by shifting his mindset. And I want this to plant a seed that whole like wounded healer bullshit, that's like passé. And the new paradigm is you get to be abundant, you get to choose, you get to have true liberation in this society. And true liberation in this society is making friends with the energy in this society, which is money. And before we drop into this episode, be sure to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. That is the best way to stay up to date on the latest episodes. We've got this in video format, so if you're just hearing my voice, be sure to also watch our fabulous outfits on video as well on Spotify, YouTube, or the Apple Store. This is the best way to stay in the flow with future conversations and also allows the podcast to reach more people. So hit subscribe so I can keep vibing with you on all future episodes. Now let's get into this one. So without further ado, let's welcome Ajit Nawalkha to the High Self podcast. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. And it is so fun to hear how you grew up. I didn't know about that story about the whole attitude that your father had towards money. My father was no different, but I didn't know that about your story as well. That's fascinating.
I think it's like the drive underneath it all.
Yeah, it's like it's also immigrant. I think your parents were immigrants, right? So sometimes it has a little bit of an immigrant thing where you feel like you need to save so you could give a better life to the next generation, and you forget what about right now, and they're experiencing life right now, and what about that story. So that probably was one of the possibilities that your father was experiencing, to have that kind of a strict attitude of scoop of ice cream with 60 cents.
So I'm curious to learn more about your story. Can you share with us a bit about your money story and background?
So, like you mentioned, I grew up in India. I grew up in a house of 23 people. We were 23 people sharing the same space. It's not uncommon in India, but it in the amount of space we had, it was a little tight. Let's just say it that way. The reason why it's not uncommon in India is because in India, we live in what is called a joint family. So you have your parents, you have your grandparents, you have your uncles and aunts. In our scenario, we also had our cousin grandparents and cousin uncle and aunts sharing the same space. So we were kind of tight. We had a lot of abundance of love in the space because, of course, you have so many people, everybody taking care of each other. Because when you don't have space, well, guess what? The best of us comes out a little bit because we have to support each other in every way possible. So we had abundance of love, but clearly not abundance of money. And that kind of early on, when I was 13 or so, is when I had the realization how much I needed to change that story. Because when I was 13, there was one of the nights me and my brother used to share a room, which was our sleeping room in the night and our study room in the day, and the guest room when the guests would come. And one of the times, one of my uncles was over, and it was the same bed, which was basically a mattress on the floor, where it was like the uncle's gonna also share that bed because he was gonna stay overnight. And so I sleep on one side of the bed, then my brother was sleeping in the middle of the bed, and my uncle gets the largest side of the bed. But my side is so tiny, and I was about 13 now, so I wasn't a baby. I needed a little bit more space. And like brothers are, we start fighting about space. And as we are fighting about space, about a couple of minutes in, my mother comes out because she's kind of feeling shameful because my uncle's also right there watching this fight for space. And she goes, "Ajit, go to sleep." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't have any space. How can I go to sleep?" She goes, "Ajit," I said, "go to sleep." I said, "Yeah, but can you ask him to give me some space? Because I have no space here." And she goes, "Ajit, I'm telling you, go to sleep right now." And I kept fighting back. And soon enough, I see one tight slap coming across my face saying, "Go to sleep." Right? I'm a 13-year-old kid. I get slapped across the face. Of course, I'm not going to fight my mother there. I push the pillow further down, create even less space for me, shove my face in the pillow, and I start crying. And the realization happened next morning because when I woke up, I found that my pillow was still wet, which meant I had cried myself to sleep. And I told myself that day that this will never happen again in my life. I would never live a life where I don't have space. Now, it's a different story that now I have two children and they don't give me any space, but I enjoy a 5-bedroom house and I have multiple properties and I've been able to create a lot of abundance for myself. But that's where the journey started, where the decision was made that I don't want to live like this. There's got to be a better path. And the first path I found was what a traditional Indian path is, to become a doctor or an engineer. I had chosen engineering. And as I studied for it, I realized that what an engineer does, a computer engineer does in the early years, at least of their career, is a lot of bug testing. And bug testing is one of the most boring things on planet Earth because basically you're running a program and finding what's wrong with the program. That's all you're doing all day, every day. And I was like, that does not sound like a fun career. I like creating. I have a creative energy. And so I was like, this is not going to be fun. I don't want to do it. And so very early on, I decided I want to make money, but I also want to like my life. I don't want to hate everything that I do. And that led me to very early on start to find or try to find people who were educating me on how to become wealthier in life, but also live a better life. And that got me introduced to several individuals at 18. I was doing multiple jobs to kind of learn from the people. So I usually always work with people who are in education because they tend to be givers, right? They're teachers, they're educators. They want to help the kid. They want to help. That's their drive. That's why they become teachers. And they were wealthy. So I was like, okay, I'm going to learn both the lessons with these individuals. Very early on, my education started, but it really took off when, because of a chance coincidence, I happened to run into this company called Mindvalley, which some people might know who is watching, some people might not. But as I joined this company as an intern for $400 a month, I realized how much somebody's belief system plays a role in their abundance or in their life overall. In 6 years from being an intern in Mindvalley making $400 a month, I was the CEO of the company. And soon enough, because of my own journey in life, I'm now a partner in the company. And I've also supported, like you said, many companies to create great abundance. I've been able to help thousands of individuals become coaches. And I'm really grateful for being able to create an abundant life, but also in a way that I actually enjoy, that I live my purpose. I live my dharma every day.
So a lot of us are in our celibacy era where we are calling in the divine masculine and not settling for anything else, but a woman still deserves a little bit of pleasure and a romance, but why not do it through sexy audio stories? So Dipsea has the most juicy stories. I'm going to play a little clip for you so you get a chance to understand what I'm talking about. Hold on a second. Let's drop this.
I used to dream about us in the locker room, behind the bleachers, in the library. There were times when I felt almost tortured just being around you.
Do you still?
It's very, very difficult for me to not touch you.
So yeah, enough said. If you'd like to get an extended 30-day free trial, go to dipseastories.com/Sahara. That's DIPSEA stories.com/Sahara for 30 days of full access for free. You can find that link in the show notes. Thank me later.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen.
So inspiring just witnessing you go from intern to partner at the company, taking the skills and tools that you've learned, helping other companies. I'm curious though, I hear people say that most of our beliefs are made, before we're 10 years old or even like before 5 years old. How were you able to rewrite some of those stories that you picked up on?
So I believe first of all, beliefs are getting made right now. So beliefs don't actually ever stop getting created. Our stories, our traumas are always being built and they're getting stacked on top of each other. There are some underlying beliefs that might have gotten created until you were 8 or 10. But if you really look at life, you're always picking up beliefs, right? Like if somebody takes, like for example, there was a time where one of my friends had picked up this belief, don't trust people. And the reason was because some person cheated him out of money. So he was like, don't trust people. Never trust your employees. Always be like a watchdog to your finances because people will cheat. People will steal from you. But what happens when you start thinking everybody's going to steal from you? Constantly anxious, you're never safe, you never feel safe. Can you grow abundance from a place of unsafety? No, because every investment is a risk, every conversation is a risk, every detail is a risk. You're scared. Of course, you're not going to expand your consciousness. You're not going to expand your abundance. So beliefs are getting created anytime, in all times of our lives, including when you were 10, when you're 3, when you are 30, when you're 35. Doesn't matter. It's not going to stop. The choice that we have at all times is, are we operating from that belief? Are you operating from what I call, quote unquote, your block? Block is a story that you told yourself based on an event that happened in your life, right? So we have many events. Like, for example, the event that happened in your life about the ice cream, you clearly remember it, right? It creates and it is anchored in your memory. Many such events might have happened in your life, but that event is stuck with you because it meant something, right? Now, there are two ways that you could look at that event from your point of view. One is you could say, if you were like really associating that your father really knew about money, you would create a story, save every cent you can, right? That could be one narrative that you could pick. Another narrative that you did pick was, don't worry about 60 cents. It's not going to hurt nobody. Like, you can get another scoop of ice cream. It doesn't matter, right? But there are many such stories that would actually be helpful or hurtful. And you got to decide every day what story is helping me and what story is hurting me. We call it a disempowered thought or an empowered thought. A disempowered thought is any thought that does not allow you to make progress, that keeps you stuck. Being stuck in whatever you believe today will never create something new. It's not possible. You can only create from a new thought. And because you can create from a new thought, what's the alternative thought? And any trauma, any tragedy that might have happened in life, it happened, but it kept happening again and again every day you chose that thought. So you can switch it off today. And the decision as simple as choosing that I'm going to switch it off.
I love that so much. And yeah, seeing the way that my dad controlled money, the belief that it created in me was, I will never let someone else control my money. I will always make my own money. And that's, so that ended up being actually quite empowering, but I could have gone the other way. So I'm curious what you suggest. I feel for a lot of people, it's this fear. If I have more money, it's more for me to manage. It's going to be more problems in my life. So I would rather kind of keep it small where I'm, safe and in control.
Yeah. So that's a narrative that I think it is unconsciously created by rich people in a way, because it keeps everybody at bay. Nobody tries if they're not taking the risk, right? The thing is, the wealthier you are, it's actually less to manage. We think it's more to manage. It's actually less to manage. The biggest thing that abundance, and that's why everybody needs to be abundant. And the reason is because the more abundant you are, the more you can rotate the energy of money, which means the more you give. The more you receive, the more you give. But giving always doesn't mean I'm donating it to something. Giving also means I have a finance person that tells me exactly where my investment should go. Like just this afternoon, I was just like calling one of my banks, and I bank with many banks. And one of the banks, I was like, you know what? I want a line of credit. The guy figured out how to get me a line of credit. I don't even need the money, but I was just like, I want a line of credit because my finance person says, Ajit, you have no debt in the market, which is not a good thing in America. It's a great thing in India, but it's really bad thing in America if you don't have any debt in the market, because the banks think you have just, if you don't have a credit line, they don't know how to really trust you to give you credit in future if you ever need it, right? Very practical. I know it might be a little boring, but it is how rich people get richer. Often you might have heard that. And that's because they can work with the line of credit. They can borrow a lot more in America. And so they can build more faster because of it, right? So my finance person goes, and this is totally like, I'm not thinking about any of these ideas, right? And I'm not managing this money either. My finance person goes, Ajit, one thing that we're missing is you don't have a line of credit in America. Can you raise some money? Here are the 3 bankers that you can contact, because I bank with those banks. Email each one of them, CC me on it, because what we should do is we should get a line of credit with at least one of the 3. So there is a line of credit that is under your business name. And so I called one of the banks, and they were like, yeah, we will send you a couple of 6 figures. I'm not going to give the exact amount here, but they were like, a couple of 6 figures seem pretty straightforward. If you need more, just let us know, right? But the more you borrow from us, the lesser rate we will give you. So if you go to 7 figures, your percentage that you pay us as interest goes lower. So managing money is actually not hard. Managing money is actually easier. The more you have, the easier it gets, because you have more people learning that for you. We think that the challenge becomes is we think we need to know everything. We don't need to know much. What we need to know is we need to be the person that can have that money. And that being that person is in spiritual sense of quality and psychological sense of quality. It's not practical skills. Practical skills are hired. You get a person to do it. Spiritually, do you trust that there is infinite money? If you do, then you don't feel risky or fearful about who will take my money because you know there's more to come from, right? If you psychologically understand that there is a certain pattern that you have and you can break that pattern by simply either challenging your fears or challenging your blocks, you will increase your vibration, your frequency, and so your feelings will go up. And as your feelings go up, you will actually be able to create better action and you will not stay in your head. And that will allow you to create more money. So the challenge really is not a practical challenge. The story is a psychological story, but it comes from your spiritual belief most of the time.
It's so true because I remember back when I used to file my own taxes, it would take me like the 2 months before, I'm like going through my bank statements and what's this? And I'm like trying to figure it out. And I wasn't sure if I was doing it the right way. And then I would hire these like random people from the Philippines who like were not my bookkeepers at all. I would just hire them for the taxes like cheap. And it was like so much back and forth. And now I have a business manager. And she's like, okay, this is how much we're paying. And I'm going to pay it from your account because she has logins to everything. And she's like my friend, and it's so much easier because now I don't have to spend 2 months on filing my taxes. I can focus that energy on making money.
Exactly. And you made so much more because of it, because you're not thinking about taxes at all. Like for the matter, there's a big possibility that your finance person, if you call them right now and say, hey, what are we expecting to pay in taxes next year? They already know it, or will get you that data in about 2 days. Right? So you don't have to think about such things, which right now take all the time. So the idea that I have more money means more management. No, more money means less management. More money means you have to think less about money. More money means you work with better people. More money means you work with more fiscally responsible people. That effectively means more money means more money. It doesn't actually mean less money. It means way less management.
So I feel like now the thing people are thinking is, sure, I'd like to make more money, but it's not happening. I'm not making more money. I don't have a podcast or something. And I feel a lot of people who listen to this, they're spiritual people, they're helping other people. So they feel bad also charging more, they feel like I'm helping people. I see a lot of spiritual people give their time for free. Mm-hmm. So what kind of mindset shifts can we make, especially as spiritual people, to feel comfortable charging more and even opening up to new ways of making money?
So not being able to charge more might come from wherever you got your spiritual education from, because it probably came from somebody who used some of the old storytelling to tell you that money was bad. So it depends on which school you studied at, but I'll reference, let's say, more, because we talk about Dharma a little bit on this, so I'll take the Hindu reference or the Bhagavad Gita reference, right? If you think about it, Bhagavad Gita never says don't make money. Actually, for that matter, most of the characters, the gods, the Bhagwans, the warriors, all of them were kings or queens. They were all in lives where they actually lived, right? Even Shiva, who is the creator and the destroyer, had gunas that worked for him. He had a whole army of people that will go along everywhere with him. He was a wildly abundant person, right? So in nowhere in the actual characterization of any of the books were the people who created these cultures were not abundant. Now, abundance looked different, right? Every culture will have abundance look different. Every philosophy will have abundance look different, but they were all wildly abundant people. So anybody that tells you that you shouldn't because you're spiritual hasn't understood the actual text that they have been teaching from. What happens is in these texts, often there are certain category of people that are classified as the Brahmins, or in another way, sometimes dhyana yogis. And that might qualify as a spiritual person. Again, there are many other ways to say it. I'm just referencing some material, right? If you're a dhyana yogi, you are somebody who is into meditation and practices meditation to bring enlightenment to the planet. And one of the perceptions can be, well, you're a dhyana yogi, so you should not have money. Or another perception of it could be, you're a dhyana yogi, you have to express that meditation across the globe. You should be wildly abundant so you can express it across the globe. Where is the reference coming from that spiritual people shouldn't ask for money? If you're spiritual, you should be asking for money. That might be the actual truth of the storyline of spirituality. So let's look for where the evidence comes from, right? What is it that tells us that spiritual people shouldn't ask for money? Who is the spiritual person that you know of who doesn't ask for money? You don't know them. If they, quote unquote, were spiritual and you knew them, they probably had money. That's why their message was wide enough that you heard it. Otherwise, nobody knows them. Their spirituality never got realized. Their spirituality never really meant anything except for themselves, which is great. I mean, kudos and all power to you, but then don't become the medium. Then just be the person that is experiencing it for themselves. Very selfish of you, but that's what you're really saying when you say spiritual people can't charge money. If you don't charge money, your movement is never going to go forward. So let's ask ourselves, what event caused that belief to be settled in your mind? Because it is an event that you made up a story and you said, this is what it actually means versus what it actually meant. Right? So like we were talking about previously, every event has many thinking or thought structures that come out of it. You can choose which thought is helpful to you and which thought is hurtful to you. You probably took the thought that was safe. It's safe to say, I'm not going to ask for money because that's not spiritual. It's safe. Sure, you will stay safe where you are, but safety never led to growth. Safety never led to impact. Safety just left safety. So if you want to be safe, you're making the right decision. You can stay safe. If you want to remove that from your life, that you don't need to be safe, you're actually here to do something meaningful in the world. If you are in this world to make a change, choose to have a different thought psychologically, and you can also remove the energetic block that you might have of that event on your life by simply reprogramming that time using many different meditation methods, which we can get into or we can choose to not get into. But it's basically you have a hold of energetic hold, of course, and a story hold that is there in your life right now based on that event. If you can find the event, you can change the story. If you can change the story, you can have a different story. And then you don't have this feeling of spiritual people don't ask for money.
I love that. As you were saying that, I was thinking about how when I started my online business, I remember some people commented saying, well, if you're a spiritual person, why are you charging? You're a fraud. You're just money hungry. And they were like commenting, yeah, she's just money hungry. And I felt so bad. I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't have sold this course. And, just second guessing myself. But then I realized that, okay, what's the result of this? I take the course down, then I can't impact people's lives. Like these people are actually preventing me from sharing anything. And it's just like you said, in that moment decided, they're right. Spiritual people trying to make money, it's a fraud. Shutting the business down. You wouldn't be here. This podcast wouldn't be here. The millions of people whose lives I've got into touch wouldn't be here. And we don't realize that we're taking advice from people who we would never want to be like.
Yeah. And often, who are these people? Who
Strangers
are these people? Strangers who don't have no money themselves.
Exactly.
And a lot of the times it is because they feel insecure because they can't actually afford the program and your services. That doesn't mean that we have to listen to them. The thing that we actually need to do at that point is see how we can raise the consciousness for most people to have the money that they never have to question if they can buy a program or not.
Do you know what's so funny? Yesterday, I went on my the email that my email list is sent from. I was like, I wonder what replies I get on this email. And I saw that there was someone who had emailed me a very long time ago. I missed this email. And she was like, I watched your Discover Your Dharma webinar. And I'm so disappointed that at the end you tried to sell me your course. And I thought you just cared about me as a person. You tried to sell me this. And it just took me away from everything I experienced. Mm-hmm. She re-emailed me this week.
Oh, yeah?
Like 2 years later.
Yeah.
And she said, do you know what I've realized since then? She just came back to their own email that I never actually replied. She said, do you know what I realized? That it actually gave me so much value. And actually you were even less pushy than other people, but you're trying to help people in this. And she's like, so I apologize for sending that. And she had this 2-year full circle moment. And it just showed, I've not changed anything. And it's just, what we feel about ourselves, how we feel around money, how we feel around selling. If I think that selling is icky, money is icky, then if I see anyone else do it, I think that they're icky. When I become comfortable with that, I know if I'm going to, watch a webinar, obviously there's going to be some sort of offer at the end because this person is giving an hour of their time teaching, I'm not like, I thought you were my friend, it's clear here. And I'm actually interested. I'm like, I wonder what their offer is because it's like, if I liked this free webinar, I wonder if I would like their paid course because I also understand that we live in this society where spiritual people need to provide for themselves. Like back in the day, spiritual people were gifted everything.
Yeah.
You were gifted. Like I was living in this village in Thailand, and every single day we would cook food and feed the monks. The monks lived in the temple. They were fed. They were even given offerings of jewels and everything.
Yeah.
I don't see anyone at my door with banana bread. My landlord requires money. I can't be like, you know what? Blessings, So for us to be spiritual people and to be able to share in this day and age, we need money. And that actually allows us to like have a clear mind to be able to share. Not healing our money mindset actually prevents the rise of consciousness.
Absolutely, because if your field of consciousness is actually broad, money will come to you, either directly or indirectly. Like you said, the monks, they would get fed if they would not, they will be taken care of because their consciousness is so broad. They're not thinking about money in the same way, I cannot ask for money. No, they went for and I might misquote the word, but I think it's called bhiksha, that they will go door to door and say, hey, what's your offering to me today? Right? That's what the Buddhist monks did. That's what the Jain monks did. I think that's what the Brahmins did as well at a point. They would just take a big bag and they would just go to everybody's house and people would just give them rice or whatever it is. At that time, that was abundance. That's like, I'm talking about like old times, right? What's the modern time of a replication of that? I'm not going to everybody's house, but I have a checkout link. It's the same damn thing. There's nothing different. I'm still doing the same abundance methodology that was happening before. This whole narrative of spiritual people are not supposed to charge money comes from generally, if you really think about it, nobody's supposed to charge anything for anything really. That's what people who say spiritual people shouldn't charge believe about anything in the world. It's like it should just be a free world. It doesn't work that way because that doesn't help the consciousness to expand. There's a deep correlation between how we've expanded. The society has gotten so much better because we have become a little bit more capitalistic. And we've actually always been capitalistic, but we have become more present to capitalism. And so there's no correlation between spirituality and money except for the one that's in your head and the one that is in the head of people who honestly take most of their decisions and their comments based on the emotional state that they're in. And so if you decide from your emotions, you'll always be broke. Most likely, there is no way out of it because you'll spend all the money you make because you're basing it off an emotion, not off actual thinking and consciousness of what is it that you're meant to do in the world. You're thinking about what am I here to take from the world. That's a different consciousness. If you're broke perpetually, that's because you're taking from the world. But if you're giving to the world, you will never be broke. It's a very different way of thinking. And the people who tend to be broke are the people who go, I make $6,000, I spend $6,000. Why? Because you're trying to take everything you can. You're not trying to give anything to the world. You're trying to say, how can I have more, so I can show and demonstrate that, look how great I am. Look at this, look at that. If you're looking at this and you're looking at that, then you're not operating from consciousness. Abundance is available for everyone. I don't need to show you my abundance. I need to experience my abundance and be able to celebrate that with you by giving you something, not taking something from you, right? I don't need your attention. I definitely want to serve you, but I don't need your attention. I can get the attention as a result of it, but I'm not going to ask for it, right? So real understanding of spirituality, at least from my point of view, understanding of spirituality and abundance is a deep correlation. If you're not spiritual, you're not going to be abundant. And if you're not abundant, you're not going to be spiritual.
I love that. And it's such a powerful reframe of the most abundant people are actually the most giving. Because I feel like we've created this narrative in our minds of like the elite, like the people who have all the money and they're like the worst people in humanity. And so we're like, I don't want to be anything like them. And then we think of like good people, we think of ordinary people. And we're like, so for me to be good, I must be just, making an ordinary paycheck. And if I want more money, then I'm like an elite that's going to destroy humanity. And I love how you reframed that of actually, and by the way, it's like, I hate that we even call them elite because there's nothing elite about that, And also a lot of those people too, they're probably spending all of their money. They're like these people who might have a lot of money, maybe they're big politicians or whatever it is, but they're just spending an even higher level, they're not actually, and they're in a constant fear of losing the money too, which is not an abundant mindset.
Yes. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but most people I've interacted with who are wildly wealthy are some of the nicest people I've ever met. They are very generous with their time. They're very generous with their thoughts. They're very generous and they always want to help. At least my interactions with them has always been like that. Now know that they're human beings, which means if you try to catch them on a street while they're with their kids, they're going to be, assholes to you because they're trying to hang out with their child. But when they're in the right container, they are the kindest, nicest people. They'll sit with you, they'll listen to you, they'll support you in any way they can. But if you want their attention, if you say, give me something, then they're not going to give you anything. They can feel your energy. When you have abundance, when you don't have abundance, you have the same fears that you have. It doesn't change if you don't work on them. And so the people who have a lot of money and they're scared, it's because they never worked on that part of them. But that doesn't mean they're not spiritual. That simply means, like anybody, they have challenges in their life. It doesn't mean they're not human. Like, they're still human beings. So they will have the fears. They will have the emotion. They will, for the matter, that actually gets more magnified. Because now when they will fail, when I fail, when you fail, everybody watches, right? Because we are publicly seen. If I bomb tomorrow, everybody will see, right? If something happens to you or me or people like us, everybody sees. If somebody who didn't even try fails, nobody notices. The stakes are much lower. For you to fail is a bigger stake, and so your fear is bigger. You don't want to fail. You don't want to fail your people. You don't want to fail people who listen to this podcast. Of course, you're more fearful, but you know how to work with it. But that doesn't mean the fear goes away. If the fear goes away, you would not be responsible. And we don't want to lose responsibility. We want to operate from a place of love, but we cannot say we won't have the other feelings. We will have them. There's a wonderful gentleman called David Hawkins. He did great research on, he connected people through like frequencies and tried to track frequencies, and he tracked frequencies to different feelings that we experience. And he recognized that we move between frequencies at all times. He called it the map of consciousness. And he said, if you want to go to the highest level of consciousness, from his research, what was demonstrated is you want to operate from a place of love or above. Love, peace, joy, and highest consciousness. Very hard to achieve the highest or full consciousness. And if you don't want to be fully conscious, you operate from shame, fear, anger, frustration, these kind of emotions. So if you operate from those emotions, you will always feel like, in that moment, if you meet that person, they will feel like they're a terrible human being because they're not in the state of consciousness. But if 80% of the time they live in love or above, they would be very conscious. They will be very kind. They will do the best they can. Now, everybody's best looks different, right? We have two candidates right now at the time we are doing this podcast. There are two candidates, completely different energies in America for presidential elections. They're two different energies, but both from their point of view are right. It's hard to believe, but they both believe they're right. Even if we go, but that's obviously wrong. They both personally think what they're doing is absolutely correct. Doesn't matter what your politics is. They both stand by what they say, right? How do you know what's right, what's wrong?
Yeah, and it just opens us up to question our beliefs and question where they come from. So I think another big one is people who say, well, I have like a 9-to-5 job, so I don't have opportunities to create side businesses to manifest more abundance. What do you say to that?
There's two things I want to give. This is very practical what I'm going to give. So first of all, if you have a 9-to-5, and let's say you're making, let's hypothetically assume you make $5,000 a month, right? Question why you make $5,000 a month. So there's a spiritual principle, which is called, you'll always be fairly compensated. A lot of people find it really hard to hear, is that you're always fairly compensated. Because people go, no, but I work 12-hour days. How am I getting only $5,000 a month? Why? I'm doing 20-hour days. See, I have a terrible life. I have no time for my family. Why am I only getting paid this much money? Well, the universe doesn't decide how much you get paid based on the number of hours you work. The universe decides based on how much value you add. So while you have a 9-to-5 and you're getting $5,000 a month because you're doing work worth $5,000 a month. So how do we get past it? So first of all, you have to do or be more than what you're being compensated for the universe to actually compensate you accordingly. So I shared a short story very quickly early on that in 6 years, I went from being an intern that was paid $400 a month to the CEO of the company, which was paid in hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, right? How did that happen? It was only 6 years. 6 years is unheard of. I was 31 years old. There was no reason I should have been given a title. And the company was doing $25 million a year at that time. And I took it to 40. How is that possible, Ajit? I was a 9-to-5er. I've lived the 9-to-5 life, but I understood the principle of you're always fairly compensated. So what I understood in that principle is that if I want to get paid more, I must create more value first, right? So what's the value that you create? Right now, if you create a $5,000 value, well, you're going to get $5,000. If you're going to make $7,000 value, you get paid $7,000. How do you increase your value? Ask, are you doing a high value skill? Most people don't look at their skill once they graduate. I graduated as an accountant and I'm an accountant. What do? You try to become the manager of accountants. That's what you do, right? You move one level up. You say, what skills are required for that? And for that, you need interpersonal skills. You need how to build a community. You know how to really bring together friends, how to know your purpose, right? If you don't know that, you're not going to get out of that ecosystem. You're not going to make more money than what your frequency is right now, right? Where your frequency is was what you're always going to get compensated. It also takes away all that complaining that you have right now. All the complaining we do for when we feel like, you know what? I'm not getting my worth. I'm not getting my value. Well, stop complaining. You're always getting your value. You're always getting your worth. Universe is never unfair. Maybe it's time for you to create more value. Maybe it is time for you to create more work. And so once you understand that principle, that would first elevate your 9 to 5 revenue or income, however that is, right? The second thing that one must understand is the universe operates in infinite capability, but limited capacity. Infinite capability means you are able to create millions of dollars in an alternate universe right now if all of time and space got suspended. But you cannot suspend it. Right? It's not possible. You live in the 3D world, so you have to work with time. And because you have to work with time, your capacity is contained. When you do 9 to 5, you have to find how can I work 5 to 7 on another idea. Or if not, I wake up early in the morning and work at 5 to 7 in the morning before I go to work, right? Whatever that is, but you have to work with the capacity or give capacity the grace for it to be developed so you can eventually have that capability be realized, which means that give yourself time. Don't keep dilly-dallying your ideas. Like if you want to start a business and give yourself like 10 months, a year, 2 years to develop that business. Because we keep changing our ideas based on what social media tells us, we never actually get to pursue fully what could have been. We give up too early because we think, but I'm so capable. Yes, you are. But the world that we live in is 3D. And we can't live in the 5D world just yet. We haven't figured it out, right? We can go there, but we can't really live there. So you have to create time in this world. And for that to manifest, you have to give yourself some time. That's all it is.
So good. Yeah. I love how you always receive your value. And that can be hard for people to hear. But now, as someone who hires, I say it's so true. And I actually want members of my team to be like, I have this idea and so I can pay them more. I would love that for them to add more value. Like most business owners would be so excited about it. But I feel that a lot of us think, oh, well, I'm paid for this job. So this is it. This is as far as I can grow here at this company. So now let me go look somewhere else or somewhere else or somewhere else. But there's so much room to grow and evolve. Like one of our Dharma Coaching Institute students, Jill, who started as our student, became customer service, became an assistant coach, became a master coach, now runs all of the operations, and also runs retreats on the side and has her own programs and, still has her job where she was promoted as the internal purpose coach. And she's just such the perfect example because she was in our 2021 class and here she is now. And we're like, we love her and we're rooting her on and we get to pay her more. And, and it's like so amazing. But I feel it's that like getting out of that school system mindset where it's like, okay, I'm in 7th grade and I have to only do 7th grade things. And it's like, no, you could skip to 12th grade.
Yeah. A good leader or a good business owner never tries to underpay you. There's just no reason they would, because they know the cost of you leaving is much higher if you're a valuable player. If they don't see the value or if you haven't demonstrated value, they'll be very happy to let you go. They don't have a problem because they're also running a company. And that's the way abundance works. Is like, I will compensate you for what you're bringing to the table. You bring more, you get more. It's perfectly safe and perfectly okay.
Yeah. And I feel a lot of people, it's like they're like, well, I'm worth this. It's like, well, we're worth trillions of dollars because we're human life,
Yeah.
But there's also the value of the service I am providing, and I think we inflate our personal worth with that.
Yes, and that's not equal. It's
Yeah.
not personal worth is you can't put a personal worth to anything or anyone. It's not possible. That would be like saying your life, I can put a ticket or a number to it. That would be unfair. That's so unkind and so untrue and so not possible to do. That's not never going to happen. What is being valued at any given time is what value you're bringing to the table, what value you're creating in the world. You're never really valuing the person, which is why, like, for example, like, the whole idea of, oh, I'm being paid for this, so I'll do this. Well, that's when you will only get paid for what you're doing. Like, it's a chicken and the egg. It's like, if you never do more, you're never gonna get paid more. And then you wonder, why do I get only 2% raise every year? Because you're not trying to get a 10% raise every year. You're not making the effort. You're not making the inroads. You might be gossiping about it, but you're not doing anything. I have never struggled, and I've had a little bit of a 9 to 5 career before I started my own businesses. I've never struggled to get a raise because I always created more than what I was asked for. And so I was always compensated very fairly or more than. And you can say it's a man's world or whatever, but I'm also an immigrant. You know, I'm a brown guy. I've been also told that you're brown and you have an accent, so you shouldn't get compensated. And I've said, okay, let's see. We'll see who creates more value.
So I want to touch upon investing because this is a personal interest of mine. And I feel a lot of us women, we know nothing about it. And it feels really scary and daunting. For women out there listening, how can we start investing and where can we be putting our money for wiser returns?
First of all, you need to know your personal philosophy of how you like to invest. Right? There are two ways, primary, many sub ways, but two primary ways that one invests. Right? One is what, let's call them a conservative investor, and let's call one an aggressive investor. Right? An aggressive investor is someone who says, "What's the trick of the trade today? Let me put money in that." Right? So they would go, "Oh, crypto is booming. Let me put some money in crypto." Right? Oh, that particular stock is going to go up. Nvidia is going to go up. Let me put some money on that. Oh, Elon Musk made a comment. Let's put some money into his business. That's an aggressive investor. Aggressive investor is what actually is scary because you actually need to know what the hell is happening, right? Aggressive investing is where you go, what actually impacts? What is the balance sheet? This is a Warren Buffett kind of thing. Like, you're sitting with papers and you're going, what is the 5-year return of this particular company? How's the trend, consumer good trend is going? And I'll invest based on that. That's aggressive investing. Aggressive investing is possible, it's difficult, and it's a full-time job. Okay. So that's what usually scares people off. But investing doesn't have to be aggressive. It can be very conservative. See, most people lose money in aggressive investing. But conservative investing is where you ask yourself the question, how much is a safe return that I can have that beats the inflation? Right? So very complicated words. Let me simplify it. Every year, inflation is basically every year the market will start to, like, the value of currency goes down a little bit. And so everything costs a little bit more, right? 1%, 2%, whatever it is, right? So how is it that I can get more than 2 or 3% return in anything that I put my money to, right? Because if I do that consistently long-term enough, what will happen is this money will compound because the money will keep adding up. And over time, I would have beaten inflation. So whatever I was making, like $1's worth, may be worth $5 in 30 years from now, but my $1 would have become 10. So I've become more rich, right, over time. So a conservative investor, which should be most people, because they're not going to study any books for this, is you pick pathways and you start with something what is called different funds, like Vanguard funds, and these are different just channels. This is very practical. I don't know if this will resonate with everyone.
Yeah, like S&P 500.
S&P 500, Vanguard, these are funds that will basically accumulate a lot of different companies into a singular fund. They will do the research. There are people who are aggressive investors that are sitting on top of this, and they study like crazy, right? Their job all day, every day is to see what's happening in each company, right? And they put a bunch of these companies together. And they say, if you put into, say, S&P 500 or a Vanguard fund that is on this, and there's a bunch of other companies that do this, what would happen is you give us $1 and give it us for like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, whatever it is. And the likely rate of return, it's not promised, but the likely rate of return, and they always have been able to do that, is about anywhere between 8 to 12%, right? And they'll take about a 1% fee off that, right? So what will happen is over time, all you're doing is giving money to this one fund, right? And you pick a few of those if you want different types, or if you're trying to be overly dramatic about it, but you don't have to. You pick one, S&P 500, Vanguard, one of those funds, and you put the money there, and it'll compound over time. That's the easiest way to invest. You will be a millionaire in the next 30 years, 30 to 40 years, if you put like a couple of $100 a month, right? So I don't have my math numbers in front of me, but just a couple of $100 a month, and you would become a millionaire, I think 30 years from now, 30, 35 years from now, because it just compounds on top of each other. It doesn't look like a big investment on your end because you're just spending, say, or you're investing maybe say $500 a month or something like that. And then you are becoming a millionaire by that timeline. It's a slow way to become a millionaire, but you absolutely can. So that's the simplest investment thing that you can do. And so that's the first category that you do. Then if you like, no, dude, I have a lot more money than that, because let's say that's, and what you need to do also is you need to understand how much money you have and how you want to split it, right? So say, for example, somebody makes $10,000 a month. Let's say they go, you know what, I'll like to spend, I like really this one particular house. I will pay rent, say $3,000, $4,000, 30, 40%. Americans spend about up to 50% in rent. I think 30% is a pretty good number. 30, 35%. If you can find a decent place where you want to live and that amount, you should do that, right? So 30% or 35%. So you say $3,500 go there. Then you would go, okay, what's the next layer? My food, my expenses, car, bills, all of that. You add it up. Let's say another 30% gets added there. Now you're left with 60, 65% in total that you've spent. The remaining 30% or 25%, whatever's left, 10%, whatever's left, you say this is going to go into an investment, right? What you don't want to do is compromise any of your lifestyle, because you'll just be unhappy. And then if you're unhappy, you'll make less money. And so you'll hate that investment. So don't do that, right? But you can have a really happy life if, again, you go back to the spiritual principle of really knowing how much really makes you happy, because there's no end to it, right? There's no end to spending. You can buy 100 watches and still be unhappy, right? So you got to know what makes you happy, and that you can be happy in the now. And if you can be, and then you find those bare minimums that make you happy, will give you the joy of life, and you get to live the life you want to live. You put the rest in investment. Over time, you just become a millionaire just by doing that. So that would be a safe path to do it. Funds is the first step. After that, the other safe vehicle, you need a little capital, is real estate that you can do. So that's where you can start with a small apartment. You don't have to start with houses or anything like that. And you would start with them. You'll put usually about 20% down, but you need to know how much you'll need to put every month into that, because that's the second tier of investment that is very conservatively safe, mostly safe, over 20, 30 year period of time. These are all long-term investments. And then you never look at them. That's the rule. Don't look at them. Just let them be, let them grow organically. I started doing it when I was making $400 a month. I would send $50 back to India every month. So I was living on $350 because that was my happy zone. I was like, all right, I get the food I want to eat. I get to work what I want to work on. I was also like 23, 24 years old. So I had no expenses really. And I was living in Malaysia. I was all right. I could send $50 back. And those $50 have compounded to hundreds of thousands of dollars, because that 50 became 500 at one point. And even sometimes I would send a couple of thousand. So there are hundreds of thousands of dollars that I have in India that I have no way to use even for that matter right now. But it just compounded over time. And this is 20 years ago, 18 years ago. Yeah. Wow. So it compounds, and you just have to give it time to compound. The faster path always, though, is to pick a better career, is become a coach, for example. Like, it's a high value career. And people don't understand what high value is, because we don't understand what role, say, a coach, or what a real high value career looks like. A real high value career looks where you can work with people. That's what a CEO does. That's what a CFO does. That's what a CMO does. Any C-suite person, any founder, what are they really doing? They're working with people. What's the fundamental skill to work really well with people? Coaching. So coaching is one of those high-value skills.
So true. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. It's so practical, and I feel it's equal parts of our money mindset, and then also making the actual money through coaching, speaking, whatever it is, and then the management of the money, and having these different pillars. So thank you so much for sharing it. And you teach our business section in the Dharma Coaching Institute program. So for people who love learning from him, he teaches alongside me and his wife, Dr. Neetha. So you can definitely dive in more. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom here today. Where can listeners connect with you and learn more?
Well, the best way to learn is to go to Instagram, find Real Coach Ajit, and that's where you'll find the quick nuggets. But if you want to take a deeper dive, not necessarily on money, but around business, I'm giving my book away for free. One of my books, which is called Live Big, which is perfect for entrepreneurs, perfect for individuals who want to mix passion, purpose, and practicality. It's available at downloadlivebig.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you took notes, especially on all this investment stuff. Like, imagine you could just like literally be a millionaire from, I don't know, instead of putting the money in your bank, just putting it into one of these funds. It's so incredible. I feel like women, we don't know these things. It feels like it's like in the boys' room, but it's like we're bringing it into the girls' room now, and we get to have fun with it, and we get to let it come from our dharmas and let it come from a place that is in alignment with our purpose, and not sacrifice who we are for money, but actually see that our highest level of abundance comes from being our full selves. So you can learn more about Highest Self Institute, our Dharma coaching program, and everything else mentioned today in the show notes. And I can't wait to see you on the next episode.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Surrender, let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your